Hello and welcome to another episode of Seven Story Podcast. I'm Tasha Kyler and I'm here today with featured author Zara. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Natasha. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So it's kind of cringe talking about myself. Um, I could talk about my debut all the time, but I like cringe when I talk to myself. I'm a native New Yorker, 80s baby. Love listening to music. I can't go a day without listening to music. I have to have music 24/7. I always try to enjoy the simple things of life. I try not to take life too seriously, and I enjoy having a good time. I'm always laughing at the most inappropriate things. Um, like I said, I like having a good time. And when my day is in hectic, I like trying to get out back to the city. Currently, I live in New Jersey, so I try to get out to New York and visit like art galleries, museums, and things like that. So I like doing things like that. And yeah, that's pretty much.
I definitely hear your New York accent. It's very strong.
Yeah, it's still yeah. Even after I moved, I live in Jersey now, so I'm like a 40 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic, from New York. So
And can you tell us a little bit about your debut novel, When the Clouds Dance?
yes, so it's a closed door black romance book, and it centers on the main character whose name is Micah. The story is pretty much driven around him, and it pretty much showcases. It's a romance, but there's more to it than that. It pretty much showcases personal growth, overcoming trauma from childhood trauma, dealing with mental health issues, personal growth. So I wanted to include all those into my novel and show it from a man's point of view. We also talk about the FMC, who is Deanna, who is the love interest, and it also showcases her personal growth and her struggles as well. So between the two of them, it shows their personal struggles, how they individually are able to get through it, but then also collectively as a unit, how they're both able to support each other despite their struggles together. So I really wanted to showcase that. It's a low conflict. There's I don't want to say too much, but it's not like overly dramatic um, story. There are some heavy topics that are addressed, so I would definitely give readers trigger warnings before reading, just to make sure that this is something that they're comfortable reading. Again, I try to handle those topics with a lot of care and not, try to get too deep. But there are topics that I wanted to cover in the book that I felt it was important to bring awareness to. One of the things too that I like to bring awareness to is endometriosis, which is a disease that some women go through, especially African American women. So I wanted to showcase the struggles of women dealing with that, and I haven't really come across that in a lot of books. So that was something that I wanted to I wanted to incorporate in my story. So yeah, mental health, women's health, things like that, I wanted to incorporate. So it is a romance, but like I mentioned before, it's so much more to it than that, just that.
It sounds very interesting.
Thank you.
What made you want to write it from mainly Micah's viewpoint?
Well, from what I read, from what I've read so far, I started to get back into reading maybe about a year and a half ago. And a lot of the books I was reading was mainly from the female's point of view. And I always, I enjoy that too, especially being a woman. However, I always wanted to hear what the man had to say. Like I wanted to hear the NMC's point of view. So I thought about it, and initially, the book is a dual point of view, but it mainly centers on his point of view. So seeing that there wasn't a lot of books like that out there from what I've come across, I wanted to share his story and share mainly from a man's perspective. So that was what was the main reason why I wanted to kind of go that route. And I don't know, it's something different. I did come across one book recently that was mainly focused on a male's point of view, and I absolutely loved the book. And I was like, wow, there's a book like this. Like I ate it up and I couldn't put it down. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I think in from having a poll, I had posted a thread on my threads a while ago, like, if anybody would be interested in that. And a lot of people showcased that they were. Like they would be interested in reading more from a male's point of view because it's not as common. So I wanted to do something different, and I said, let me go that route. So I kind of rewrote a lot of the scenes, and I'm happy with how it's turning out so far.
That's exciting. That's exciting. How did you choose the title?
So the title, I came up with this title years ago. Like one day I was out with a friend of mine, a close friend of mine. We were apple picking, and we were in the orchard looking up at the sky, and the sky just had like, it was like the clouds was moving at really high speeds, and it was absolutely beautiful, and it almost looked like they were dancing with each other.
Mm.
So I was like, and that's how the title came up. I didn't have the premise for the book yet. I didn't have a plot or anything, but I just loved the title. And as I um, started developing a story, I wanted to use that title. So I want to say maybe a few months later, after I started developing the story, I said, we're going to just go with that title. So the title is When the Clouds Dance.
Was it difficult to, if at all, incorporate that title into the story?
No. So it, well, you know what? Let me go back. Yes. Initially it was. And I wanted to have a scene where it showcased the title, since it's a metaphor between the two characters. And I first started writing. I said, let me just see where it takes me. I started developing the story, and then it came to that scene where that's when I got really excited, because now I can showcase the title and the meaning of it behind the story. So when I get to that scene, I was like really excited. That's honestly one of my favorite scenes from the story. And I hope I do it justice by showcasing, uh, just showing that scene to readers, and hopefully they'll have a good reaction from reading that. So that's my goal.
I think you probably did great. um, Moving into like the different sections and the different characters in the book, is there anything that's very specifically personal to you?
Yeah. I want to say a lot of myself is sprinkled within a lot of the characters. So a lot of things they go through, there's things that I personally went through myself. So it was very therapeutic writing, because it does show certain things that I did go through. And I wanted to sprinkle that in within the story. So yeah, there's definitely things that, parts of me that are sprinkled in within the story.
I feel like as authors, as writers, it's hard not to leave little bits of us within. So I like to ask and see how people do that because it differs from person to person.
It does. It does. Some characters, I would say, um, I just developed their character just from other people's personalities that I've encountered over the years. So not every character I could say is a part of me. I would say maybe two in particular, two, three in particular that I can say that I kind of sprinkled my personality through, but the rest of them, they're pretty much just on their own. I just developed them.
And that's actually part of my next question. How do you come up with those characters? Are they spontaneous? Are they meticulously planned? What's your process like?
So my main character, he was planned down to the T, from his personality, from the way how his signature quotes, from how he talks to how he dresses. He was planned out to the T. Um, the love interest, she was also planned out to the T. But I feel that as I started writing the novel adoption, her personality started to get more well developed over time as I wrote her.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say she's a very well developed character as well. And I would say the side characters, as I wrote, I just kind of, at the time, I didn't have an outline. I just kind of wrote whatever came to my mind. Now I have an outline. So if ever I get writer's block or something like that, I could kind of reference that and go back and be like, okay, what do I do here? So yeah, the other characters, they slowly developed over time as I was writing it. But for the, I want to say the two main characters, they were developed down to the T.
Very interesting. I feel
Mhm.
like most of the people I've talked to so far, they're like, I meticulously plan out all my characters, or they're like, whatever happens, happens. It's never really a mixture.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fun. It's certain things is fun when they come up spontaneously. Like when you write and you're like, oh, you know what? Let me just. A couple of them came up like that, and it was fun writing them. And I just, as you continue to develop the first draft, you start to develop their personalities and things like that. So it can be a lot because when you have a lot of characters, you're like, you got to make sure that they're there for a reason. It's plot driven. They're there for a reason and for a purpose. So, and then you want to show enough of them, but then not too much where it takes away from the main character. So it's like you got to find a balance.
Right. What do you hope readers will take away from your book?
So a few things. I want them to come and once they finish reading, I want them to find comfort, hope, joy from reading. I want them to be able to identify with the characters, see themselves within the characters. And, that's a big takeaway that I want readers to have. And again, even though I address some heavy topics, I don't want it to be too heavy where it's depressing, but I want the reader to walk away feeling joyful and want the story to stay with the reader long after they read the story. That's a goal of mine. So that's what I'm striving to accomplish. And I just want people to be happy from reading it and just joyous, just finding hope and joy.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Based off how you talk about the novel, I think that you're going to be able to hit all of those benchmarks.
Thank you. I'm trying. I have, I had a couple of beta readers so far. I actually have one in particular he's been reading my first draft and he's kind of going over it with a fine tooth comb. And I began like he's one of my favorite poets, and just the fact that when he reads certain chapters, he's like, "This was so good." It makes me like it kind of like validates everything. So it's like, okay, I'm on the right track, because sometimes as a writer, you question your writing. You're like, is anyone gonna read this, or is anybody gonna enjoy it? So him reading it and along with a couple of other readers and sharing how they enjoyed it so far, it kind of takes a little pressure off of me. It's scary to have your work out there for others to read. It's a very vulnerable situation that you put yourself in, but it's needed. So that way, if there are constructive criticism, you can apply it to make the story better. So that's why I want to make sure before publishing that it's polished, the manuscript is polished to the T, and that is something that I'm satisfied with before publishing.
You said that it's scary and it's nerve wracking to publish your work and put it out there. Can you talk a little bit more about those feelings and how you combat those?
Yeah, so I know a lot of writers feel like this, imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to know and realize what helps me sometimes is knowing that every story has this uniqueness to it. Every story is different. Every writer is going to share it in a different way. It's all about perception. So I have to remember that and know that no one can tell the story like how I can. and I know that this story will resonate with somebody, you know. Um, so that kind of helps me when I'm getting in a slump at times, and I'm like I don't know. There's times where I wanted to quit, and I'm just like, maybe this is not a good idea. But then that inner voice in me is like, nope, keep pushing, do it, because if I don't, I'm gonna regret it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a work of as a labor of love. I put a lot of thought, a lot of research, a lot of time into this manuscript. So I don't want to have all that go to waste and regret it like a year from now, 2 years from now. I'm like, I should have completed it.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps me kind of like combat those feelings to kind of continue. So, and then hearing from other writers too in office that they go through the same thing, I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one. It's not just me. So that helps.
Yeah, it's always great to be in community with other writers because you're like, oh, this very specific feeling, I'm not alone in this. That's great.
Yeah, and I'm in a writers group where we're on Discord. There's It's a women's based writers group, and we pretty much check in every day. We do writing sprints together, which is so encouraging. After our writing sprints, we meet back in the meeting room and we discuss like what we may have been stuck on, what chapter we may be stuck on, what scene. We kind of talk it out with each other, and it really is really helpful. That's been like extremely helpful with this writing journey. Having others that you can bounce feedback off of, and if you maybe go in one direction, you can ask them, what, how does this sound? And you can get like it, and it's not just them being nice. They'll be honest with you and be like, you know what, maybe we can go a different direction. Or how about this? And they'll throw ideas out there. So I appreciate that group that I'm in so much. Like I value these women so much. And it's just, especially when we do our writing sprints together, like that is so much fun. And then we'll time it for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and we come back and we regroup and we'll discuss what we wrote. So it's really cool to have that type of community and support.
That's great. That's really awesome. Um, how often do you do those writer sprints in that group?
So normally I usually do it throughout the week. Sometimes we go on individually depending on our schedules, because all of our schedules it varies. And our schedules vary. So we have 1 day out or 2 days out the week that is scheduled. But usually I would say I sprint maybe 3 to 4 times a week. And then sometimes I just write on my own depending on the time of day. Usually I write late at night. I'm trying to reschedule and start writing more in the morning, like getting up a little bit earlier to write, because I'm like, this writing at night is like I need to do something different. And so I'm gonna start getting up a little bit earlier, try to get some writing in before the day starts. So that's gonna be my new thing now. I'm gonna try to see how that works out.
So before you change your schedule, what does a typical day look like for you?
So I usually get up early. I try to hit the gym before I go to work. Some days it's easier than others. I take care. My parents, they live in two different states. My mom still lives in New York, so I try to get out there once a month to help her out with things. My father lives out here in Jersey now. So usually when I get home, I'm, tending to household responsibilities, cleaning, cooking, laundry, all that fun stuff. And then, before the day ends, I try to get some reading in myself. Um, Sometimes I like to, I just want to unwind and just read, not think. And and then at night, like that's when I try to squeeze in some writing and things like that. So usually, like the weekends and the evenings is when I do my writing. So yeah, this days is kind of hectic. So squeeze it in where you can fit it in.
Sounds very long.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said you like to read, and I think that the best writers are great readers. So, what do you typically read? Do you have any favorite genres, favorite authors, anyone that you would like to recommend?
Um, I would say like been I've always been drawn to romance books. So I like reading closed door romance books. I like reading mysteries. I haven't read a good mystery in a while. Um there was one book that was recommended to me. I haven't read it yet, but it's in my Kindle app, and I want to start reading it. And it's supposed to be a dark romance, but it's also like mystery based in it, like a
Mm-hmm.
cold door romance. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And I haven't started reading it yet, but that's on my radar. And some thrillers, nothing too gory or graphic, but I like a good thriller that kind of can keep you on the edge of your seat, per like a page turner. You can't put the book down type thriller. So yeah, those are like the three types of genres that I'm really like that I enjoy reading. I haven't read, like I said, I've been reading more romance, more. I read in my genre, um, which is natural, but yeah, I would like to start reading more mystery and thriller books. Yeah, I'm trying to think as far as authors are concerned. Um, I can't think of any like off the top of my head, but there was one book that I just read not too long ago. One author, her name is Sierra Solange. Her books are pretty good, and she's working on her third book now. So I'm excited for that one to come out. I don't know when she's going to come out with it, but I'm excited about that one. I've already read her first two books, and I'm like thirsty for this third book to come out.
I always love it when I read a book and I'm like, this is great. This is amazing. There's a second. This is amazing. Perfect. And I'm like, no, I have to wait for a third or fourth.
Yeah, and then you're like, okay, when is it coming out, right?
Yeah, checking like any announcements? No. Any announcements? No.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially when they leave you in a cliffhanger. You're like, oh no, like when is this next book
I was
coming
like, you
out?
should have had that finished by the time you published. I'm ready. I'm ready.
But that's how you know it's good when it's got your interest like that, and you're so invested. You're like, wait a
Mhm.
minute, I need this in my life, you know.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Talking about like your writing experience, do you typically write pencil to paper or do you prefer digitally?
So mainly digitally. I do have a notebook with notes. Like I have my characters, characteristics all like drawn, mapped out in my notebook. And then the feedback that I get from my beta reader, anytime he gives me feedback, I write it in my journal. Not my journal, my notebook. And then I go back to that chapter and then make the edits to it. And then I send it back to him and he rereads it. And I'll ask him if this is on the right page. And he's like, yeah, this is good. So um, I eventually want to print out my whole first draft once I'm completed with it and kind of like dissect it, go over it with no, the pen and paper. But for the most part, my manuscript is digital. But I know there are some writers that handwrite their manuscripts. But since everything is going to be formatted in ebook and everything like that, it's just easier for me to just keep things digitally, so that way
Mhm.
when I upload it later on, I don't have to worry about retyping everything all over again. So I mean, everyone's different, but that just works for me.
Right. I am a mix of things. I do pen to pencil if I'm being intentional with my writing time, but I prefer to keep like everything digital. I'll type it up immediately after and like I need to make sure I have this.
Yes. And you know how you get random ideas when you're like not at your desk, you're at work or you're somewhere else, and you're like, wait a minute. I keep, I just went back, no lie. The other day, I'm looking at my notes on my phone, and I had over 60 scenes that I have written that I did not even implement into my manuscript. So I had to go back. I'm still actually doing that. It took almost a week, but I still have scenes that I need to add to my manuscript. And I said, I didn't even add this in there. There was quotes, there was certain scenes, there was certain dialogue that I forgot about. And I'm like, oh my God. So I had to pause from writing to add these scenes go back to incorporate it and find the chapters that scene was. It took so much work to do that. It took hours. Like, and I'm still not done. And I'm like, I cannot believe I did that. So, lesson to any writers: if you have a scene and you write it down, put it in, add it to that scene that day. Don't be like me and wait and then forget, and then you got to go back and add. Like, it takes too much work and time. Do it the same day to avoid all of that.
Yeah, that's crazy. You said 60 scenes. That's so many. And you have to go back through all of those chapters and make sure it's implemented in the right spot, change things around to make it make sense. Wow.
Yes, yes. So much added work that I could have avoided if I would have just went back when I wrote that note that day and just went to that chapter when I had it in mind and did it. No, I took forever and procrastinated, and then that's what happens. So yeah, don't do that. Take it from me. It's more work. It doubles your work, and it slows the process of trying to finish your script, your draft.
Um, would you say that's one of the more difficult things about being a writer?
I want to say yes, that, and also I hate marketing. I can't stand it. I rather just write. I actually came to the conclusion about 2 weeks ago. I've been on a social media break because I said, you know what, this is just too much. I just want to concentrate on writing my drafts and completing them. So what I was doing, like once or twice a week, I would post to just build, my audience, to bring attraction to the manuscript, to the story. But then it was just taking too much time creating content, you know. It was just too much. So I said I'd rather use that time and put that back into my writing time. So what I decided to do is the closer, once I'm done with my first draft, and while I'm midway, halfway through my second draft, is when I'll start posting content again, but like closer to when I publish.
Mhm.
So I think that would be smarter to do. And then I outsource some content to content creators who can like whip up stuff like that, especially with reels. I outsource those. I don't take. I used to do video edits before, but then it's too time consuming. Like I said, I'd rather use that time to my writing. Add that to my writing time. So I outsource those things. So I think what I'm going to do is certain posts I can do on my own in Canva. Like I can create those, but then the more intricate posts, I'll outsource those. So
That's
I think, yeah, the closer I get to publishing, like maybe about 4 months before I start publishing, before I publish, is when I'll start creating more content to build, you know, um, attraction to the novel and everything like that. So, and
yeah,
I
I
think,
think yeah,
yeah, it's
I-
just it just makes more sense because I said, I don't want to. There's going to be things I may change in a manuscript for the second draft anyway. So I'd rather have that the first draft like done working on a second draft before I start promoting it again. So I'm just putting a pause on content creating for right now and just focusing on completing the drafts.
well, we only have a few minutes left, so I want to take this time to give you the floor and talk about when you might expect your debut novel to come out and where people can find you.
So um, if everything goes according to schedule, uh, the date is set for December 5th of this year. But I don't want to put too much stress on myself. That's on the Goodreads. You can actually go to Goodreads and add it to your TBR to be read list. Um, when the Clouds Dance, if you Google that on Goodreads, I think there's another book that's out that has the same title. So there's two of us, um, which I wasn't aware of until I added my book to Goodreads. And you can find it. It will be on Kindle Unlimited, and I plan to also have it in paperback form as well. So, if again everything goes according to schedule, it would be released this December. Worst case scenario, early next year. So, I've been working very hard behind the scenes, trying to see if I can. make my deadline.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
That's it
you.
for this episode of Seven Story Podcast. Thank you, Zara, for
Thank you.
joining us and sharing your story. At the end of the year, make sure y'all go check out When the Clouds Dance. Until next time, I'm Natasha from Seven Story Podcast.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.